Hi, my name is Robert Gibson, and you're listening to Environmental Soup through the facilities of Trent Radio on my YouTube account, or through the facilities of Trent Radio or on my YouTube account. I'm recording the last episode of this season through Trent Radio. During the break, I'll continue to upload to YouTube and upload audio episodes, especially of this season and other seasons as well. Thank you for listening this past year. This episode is recorded in advance, and we'll talk about the federal budget, which was released on Monday. I'm recording this on Sunday, but I can talk about what should be in the budget related to the environment. First, Canada has been found guilty of genocide against Indigenous people. Number one thing that should be included in the budget is access to clean water for all Indigenous people and nations, and ways to address the genocide. Second, the budget should recognize First Nations rights and culture. Locally, Cove Lake First Nations lacks reliable clean water, and multiple First Nations depend on the environment for their culture. Or the culture and the environment is linked. Water and the environment are beings or family members for a lot of First Nations. Locally, the Mississauga, Anishinaabe, and the Haudenosaunee. Destruction of the environment and human rights are linked. The UN Committee on Elimination of Racial Discrimination has called on Canada to cancel a few resource projects, including the Coastal GasLink, Trans Mountain Pipeline, and Site C Dam, all of which failed to receive free, prior, and informed consent. First Nations should be recognized as sovereign nations with sovereign nations. And with treaties, access to water is shown to reduce pandemic spread. There should be Indigenous conserved and protected areas because there are growing evidence that protecting nature and uplifting First Nations reduces future pandemics. The resource projects listed destroyed wetlands through their construction or operation, which is also linked to climate change. And as a settler, it's important to recognize the biases and ongoing discrimination, genocide against Indigenous people. So Environmental Defense released a report paying polluters in April 2021. And this is a quote. Oh, there was a quote from the report. The government continues to prop up the very companies most responsible for the climate crisis, with huge sums of money, behavior that is incompatible with ensuring a safe and healthy future, end quote. 18 billion was given to the fossil fuel sector. This report does not include external cost, which may be 63 billion, and the Canadian Medical Association says health impacts are 53.5 billion. And just in Alberta, the cost for clean oil and gas wells could be 260 billion. I gave the wrong number. scroll down. Oh, where was my? There it is. Okay. And according to the Canadian Institute for Health information, $264 billion is spent on healthcare in 2019, prior to the pandemic. This is across all of Canada and shows how huge the scales that the impacts of the fossil fuel industry are. No agreement was made that the government of Canada has committed to keeping global temperatures below 1.5 degrees Celsius, which are not supported if fossil fuels receive massive subsidies. And then I'm going to see if I can split the screen so I can, oh, it doesn't quite work. And then the report pointed out that 36,000 people die a year as a result of fossil fuels. That is a lot of people. And they said that clean stimulus creates nearly 3 times as many jobs for equivalent investments. And that was a quote. This makes sense as mandatory home retrofits, as an example, would create increased demand and the need for teachers and inspectors. Here are related quotes on subsidies that are tied to environmental outcomes. Quote, the federal government invested $1 billion into cleaning up inactive oil and gas wells in Alberta. This program has not come close to achieving its intended function, job creation, end quote. And quote, rather than spending the funds on more reclamation work, the major oil companies that undertake the bulk of the work are simply replacing their own spending with federal funding, end quote. And quote, companies put their own remediation programs on hold while they waited for the government to pay for the cleanup cost, end quote. This means that less money is being spent on cleanup cost or remediation, and that companies will want handouts in the future for remediation works. And this is problematic because the government could have forced the companies to remediate anyways. Yeah, my notes are on the computer. That's why I'm pausing to scroll down. The report points out that the Trans Mountain Pipeline was bought for $4 billion and now costs $16 billion to complete. And quote, Canada's energy regulator concluded that Canada's oil exports can be met with existing capacity, end quote. Coastal GasLink pipeline was opposed by hereditary chiefs of the Wet'suwet'en Nation. There was opposition, and that was supported locally with land defenders across Canada, but also in Peterborough. And $13 million was spent on policing for just one project. And there was also a group called the Green Budget Coalition that released recommendations for recovery and budget actions in 2020, 2021. I'll look at a few areas. Small modular reactors have been supported by the federal government. And in this report, the report says, this unproven technology the price of renewables is falling, so renewables are more competitive financially, and the timelines are too far out. The government has exempted SMR projects from impact assessments and cost analysis fail to address operations and maintenance, as well as decommissioning. These are huge factors in terms of pricing. And I'll go in more to like nuclear in a future episode. In addition, any industry should face an impact assessment when it could potentially be dangerous. Nuclear, uranium, and beryllium are dangerous if handled improperly. And there have been major incidents with nuclear energy. So, and to assume no negative impacts is irresponsible considering the process. And between 2002 and 2009, Atomic Energy of Canada Limited received $433.5 million in federal subsidies to develop the Advanced CANDU reactor, but no ACO reactor was ever built. And an impact assessment also looks at financial impacts and social impacts. And there's no credible plan to store the waste. Instead of nuclear, the report offered alternatives like distributed solar, community-owned renewables as two examples. The next section is about nature protection. And data from the 2009 American Recovery and Reinvestment Act show that job creation from the investment in habitat restoration projects are bigger than, and this is a quote, are higher than investments in oil and gas and could be even higher than job creation, return on investment for alternatives or renewable energy or energy retrofits. Natural land stores carbon, so degradation of the, and that was an end quote. Natural land stores carbon, so degradation of land should be reversed. And this can be shown by calculations of how much carbon is stored in land. And it's also a lot of the resource projects go through wetlands which store like the most amount of carbon, peatlands. And like that should be a huge consideration because you can't rebuild peatlands. They take hundreds to thousands of years to form. And quote, $1 billion for reducing greenhouse gas emissions from land use change and degradation over 10 years is what they recommend. I believe that protections of land should be where it's needed most in urban areas. This was pointed out by the Auditor General's report in Ontario. Let's see. And Canada loses more critical habitat than it, quote, Canada loses more critical habitat than it conserves every year. We are facing staggering losses of over 75% of native grassland and 70% of wetlands in settled regions. The budget should cover enhancing natural areas. And this is pointed out in the report Back to Basics when talking about Ontario. And this is like former Environmental Commissioner Darren Sachs. It's a huge consideration that we're losing all the spaces, and not just for like greenhouse gases, but like habitat creation, food security for First Nations. That's a huge concern. And that's also related to climate change as well. And then 50 million, and then quote, 50 million over 5 years would result in approximately 30,000 acres of restored inland wetlands and 20 person years of employment per 1 million invested in wetland restoration. And then maps are always good for data collection. And you need maps for understanding what you're doing. Canada's greenhouse gas inventory shows that transportation accounts for 25% of greenhouse gases, and buildings account for 12%. Oil and gas is 26%. These 3 areas should be the focus of the budget. Retrofits are supported in the budget, but I don't know how much retrofits are. And I should, and I'll know more after this is recorded about the budget, specific measures. Let's see. And quote, eliminating carbon pricing from homes and buildings by, carbon pollution from homes and buildings by mid-century is essential to meeting Canada's Paris target, opens important opportunities to save money for Canadians to strengthen communities through well-paying jobs, end quote. And quote, we recommend that the federal government invest in refurbishing existing buildings with the focus on schools, hospitals, social housing, and residential buildings to 1, get them off fossil fuels, 2, improve energy efficiency, 3, make them more responsive to fluctuating demand on electrical grid via storage, on-site generation, and load shifting, and 4, make them more resilient to climate change impacts and health crises such as the current pandemic. This makes sense as the current system is very centralized. And if one area fails, the entire grid might fail, like in what happened to Texas. Well, those are the issues in what happened to Texas. And like schools and hospitals are important buildings and should be protected as much as possible from the impacts of climate change. And schools are like role models. Like earlier this week, Erin O'Toole issued a climate change which included a carbon tax. And this is a next topic. Erin O'Toole made it clear that he would he would violate the rights of land defenders and is supportive of pipelines in all their statements. So I don't trust what Aaron O'Toole has to say about climate. When it comes to small modular reactors, there appears to be no difference between the Liberal plan and they all problematic. Conservatives promised $3 billion in natural climate solutions like wetlands. The Green Budget Coalition is calling for $4.8 billion plus over 5 years plus $745 million after. And this is $2 billion less than what they're calling for. And they promote carbon capture. And an argument could be made that carbon capture allows more emissions because they allow a gas plant or a coal plant to still exist when there's less emitting sources available. I forget where I read that argument. I read it somewhere. And the International Panel on Climate Change released a report in 2005 which said that carbon capture can be a solution, but there are issues with accounting, and one issue may be if it is captured in one country and released in another, and physical leakages may also be an issue. And there was a question about how long do they store the carbon for, right? Does it have to be indefinitely? And the report was like super long, so I didn't go through the entire article. And then checking time. In order for carbon capture to be widespread, the IPCC says that carbon prices must be $25 to $30 US per ton of CO2 for large uptake of carbon capture. This would be 33.91, which is 42.44 at the low end. And the conservatives are proposing $20 per ton. And this isn't for carbon storage, which is more than that. It costs more to store carbon, like just carbon. I went too full. Given the potential given the potential for hundreds to thousands of gigatons of CO2 to be stored in various geological formations in the ocean, questions that have been raised about the implications of gradual leakage from these reservoirs. From an economic perspective, such leakage, if they were to occur, can be thought of as another potential source of future CO2 emissions, with the cost of offsetting this leaked CO2 being equal to the cost of emission offsets when they were stored, end quote. So if it does leak, it's a waste of money. Or you're just delaying paying out the same money that you would have anyways. And then conservatives will invest in $5 billion, which might delay the investment in renewable technologies. And I should say that not all renewable energy is created equal. like hydro, for example. If there's flooding involved, there was a lot of methane that is released due to reduced oxygen. And so that's another consideration. And there's also First Nations rights being violated with renewable energy projects, like especially like hydroelectric prices. So we shouldn't automatically assume that energy is good that way. And then they want to harmonize land use policies with provincial rules, and this isn't good because Ontario and Alberta are developing wetlands and forest, and they like to make the argument that they're harmonizing the rules with the federal government, but the federal government is harmonizing rules with them. It's a messy situation, so it's like the race to the bottom in standards. And the way that the government of Canada works, or the system of government works, is the lowest standard that any province has is the national standard. So if you match with the government, then it's the low standard. And then if the federal government says that they're matching with the province, they're not going to increase anything. So it's really a race to the bottom. And a carbon fuel standard sounds good because transportation is a major source of greenhouse gases. And quote, we will assess progress after 2 years and be prepared to set industrial carbon prices on a path to $170 per ton by 2030, but only if the combination of adopting a price based on that of our major trading partners and working with the US on North American standards has not assured us that we are on path to our Paris commitment, end quote. And quote, our plan will ensure that all Canadians can do their part to fight climate change in the way that works best for them, and a carbon price that is affordable, starting at $20 per ton and increasing to $50 per ton, but no further, end quote. So I'm confused. Are they going to go to 170 or not? That's a confusing thing to me. And this is lower than the Liberal plan, so people will consume more. I'm also, oh yes, and those contradictory statements in the plan. And yes, in the next half hour, I will talk about golf, and I've recorded an episode earlier, so I'll just show that. And afterwards, I'll talk about consultation in the area, if there's still time, and what's happening in Peterborough, the province, and yes. So I'll show my screen. It says you cannot minimize Zoom when you're recording this meeting. Okay, so I'll have to find the video. I'm just finding the video. But yeah, in the meantime, there's something about POX, and Connect PTBO is something that you can look at. Let's see, environmental. Oh, that's gonna play. Okay, so I should be able to show my screen now. And then I will play the environmental impacts of golf courses. Okay, so I will stop screen sharing. Oh, sorry. Oh. I don't know what. Okay. Okay, so I'm back. That's part of the technology. On Connect PTBO, connectptbo.ca. There's the 2022 budget, climate change and sustainability, heritage park, temporary downtown public space changes. Oh, yeah, it says that it's open. And cycling master plan, transportation master plan is open as well. Those are those are a few of the items. So I recommend going to that website. And in case, I'll highlight a couple of ones in case you do not have access to the internet. Climate change and sustainability. If you do not have access to the internet, you can call James ISTCHENKO, Manager of Environmental Services, at 705-742-7777. And then you can share ideas about improving climate change, resilience, and yeah, and then I think I talked about the other ones in previous episodes. And then Peterborough will have on its council agenda Not this Monday that's just passed. Well, this Monday that just passed is a special general committee meeting, but next Monday, because it was on this agenda, it'll also be on the council agenda. There will be talk about the Peterborough Master Plan, Peterborough Master Transportation Plan, and there's also a proposal for policing service contract, but the main item is Transportation Master Plan. And I think that's where you can talk, if you're concerned about like the environmental impacts of transportation. You might want to talk about that one. And then the Environmental Advisory Committee on, they would have met on Monday. So they're talking about the cycling master plan and the climate initiatives update. But those, you can find the previous reports. And what else is, Committee of Adjustment. And then those are other meetings. I should probably just do an episode of the what's on the agenda. So one thing that I noticed that caught my eye in terms of the environment on the environmental registry was eliminating renewable energy requirements. Considering that fossil fuels are still subsidized, and like natural gas and others, it's disappointing to see that they're eliminating renewable energy requirements. This is going to be, it's backwards thinking in my opinion. And it's going to increase greenhouse gas emissions as well. And the number for that is 019-3471. And it's about a regulation, and you can comment on that until May 25th, 2021. And you can submit by mail to William Coutts, Ministry of Environment, Northern Development and Mines Conservation and Renewable Energy Division, 77 Grenville Street, 5th floor, Toronto, Ontario, M7A2C1, Canada. And they're proposing to repeal 3 sets of legislative provisions in the Electricity Act, 1998, and the Ontario Energy Board Act, 1998, that promote and prioritize renewable energy generation projects. And then they're wanting to repeal sections 25.37 and cause 114 bracket 1.40A1 of the Electricity Act with regulation 326/09. And there was a related proposal to revoke regulation 326/09, and yeah, it would revoke regulations that provide priority grid access for renewable energy generation facilities. So yeah, very clearly it's going to increase greenhouse gas emissions because less carbon intensive fuels will be used. And then in terms of other ones, there's one about the green belt. You can comment on that until tomorrow, in case you're watching the YouTube video that I'll post. But if you're listening on the radio, the deadline has already passed. There was Ontario Critical Minerals Framework Discussion Paper 0193281, and you can comment on that until May 9th. And I don't have a lot of time. Let's see. Proposed changes to certain land division provisions in the Planning Act. And that has number 0193495, and you can comment on that until May 25th, 2021. Proposal for new regulation that would allow Allison Environmental to increase the amount of tiles they can thermally treat daily. And that has number 0193370, and you can comment on that until May 3rd, 2021. An update to the Minister of Transportation Statement of Environmental Values, and that has number 019-3422, and you can comment on that until May 10th, 2021. And yeah, proposed revision to Ontario Energy Board leave to construct cost threshold for hydrocarbon pipelines. That has number 019-3041. You can comment on that until April 29th, 2021. And yeah, those are some of the main ones. Let's see. And then, yes, I've been reading the Peterborough official plan as well. So the draft official plan. So I'll have an episode about that when it's close to when the announcement happens. And I plan on interviewing someone from OPOC Peterborough, the coordinator of OPOC Peterborough, on a future episode. And other environmental developments that happen. Anyways, I hope that you have good success on your exams. You're doing awesome with everything online. I know it's a challenge, and if you have exams, and I wish you a good week or a good week. Anyways, have a good one. Bye. And